Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Fight the spread and take a stand against coronavirus. Wear a mask in public. Stay at least 6 feet apart from others. And get tested. Join us and fight the spread. Visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Happy Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday, and that means In It Together, South Carolina, and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday right here on Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor. Today, we're talking about the Twindemic, flu and COVID. South Carolina's leading expert on the COVID vaccine joins us. Dr. Jane Kelly will discuss the relationship between COVID and the flu, what you need to do to protect yourself from COVID, the flu, and many other medical conditions. And while the UK is distributing their COVID vaccine, Dr. Kelly will update us on the vaccine here. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. Plus, National Board Certified Wellness Coach Lisa Burbage joins us again. She has an upcoming class that will help you and your family and friends. We'll find out all about that next on Coping with COVID. Lisa, welcome once again.
Thank you, Tre. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ladies, we look forward to the conversation that's coming up next on Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor. But first, your COVID community update. Prisma Health says they will be one of the first hospitals in South Carolina to receive the COVID vaccine and expected to be delivered as early as next week. According to their Twitter page, they will vaccinate healthcare workers in the upstate and the Midlands first. 2 more area schools are going back to all virtual. Sumter will cease all in-person learning beginning Monday, December 14th, and hope to get back to a hybrid schedule on January 21st. Meanwhile, Lexington 2's Wood Elementary School started back virtual yesterday after more than 10% of students and staff tested positive for COVID. That school will go back to in-person learning, hopefully on January 4th. And several area sports are being affected by COVID. AC Florida's 80-member football team are all being quarantined after one of the team's coaching staff tested positive for the coronavirus. Richland One is limiting spectators at high school basketball games. According to their IG page, each member will get 2 tickets for friends and family to attend beginning tomorrow. Finally, the University of South Carolina Wofford basketball game set for tomorrow has been canceled after a member of that team tested positive for the virus. The school says all men's basketball team activities are being put on pause until further notice. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of time, dates, and location for COVID and flu testing in South Carolina. Check out this scroll on the bottom of the screen throughout the show for times, dates, and locations. You can also visit gogettested.com to find out the closest location for free tests statewide. You can make an appointment on the website and get your results in 48 hours. Also check the bottom of the screen for information about the DHEC Care Line. Now, there you can find out more information about the virus and transportation to get a test. Also, if you live in Richland or Clarendon County and are unable to get to a test, if you're immobile, paramedics there are offering in-home testing. Call 911 for more information. Prisma also is administering flu tests and flu vaccines. You can see the screen for their drive-through flu testing locations. Also, the South Carolina Bar Association and SC Legal Services have collaborated on a toll-free number and a website if you need rental and mortgage help. And the City of Columbia continues their 6-month payment plan. This is for water bills. They also have payment assistance up to 75%. If you're having some challenges working or learning virtually, Rashonda Pratt has dedicated an entire Facebook page with tips and information. Check out Rashonda Pratt's Facebook page for information on learning and working virtually. And if you are a high school senior, there is an amazing scholarship opportunity available for you. The South Carolina Association of Counties is giving a $2,500 scholarship for high school seniors, and you could get that every year that you are in college. Finally, George Wallace joins us every first Monday of the month, and he was with us Monday, and he has a brand new book called Bull Wit. It is a compilation of some of his funniest tweets, and you can go to georgewallace.net.com for more information. And a very funny Christmas. If you want to get out of the house or check it out virtually, Nikita B, Akintunde, Tony Tone are all doing a very funny Christmas holiday comedy show this weekend in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, you can go to Akintunde's website for more information. And the flyer should be up there, as I don't see it on the screen, but you can check out the flyer for more information. Coping with COVID is streaming live on the TaylorMade production page. Please go over there and like and follow. Not only can you watch Coping with COVID every day that it is on at 2 o'clock, you can also get all of your COVID-related updates. We're also streaming live on YouTube. Want to say hi to all of the YouTubers. Thank you so much. Please hit the subscribe button so you can find out what's going on with Coping with COVID. And also, we are on Instagram. If you're on IG, would you please follow us and like there for Coping with COVID. Now, we are also streaming live on the In It Together SC page. There, you can find out information from the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. If you need information about diabetes, how to manage it, and to join a class to help you manage diabetes or pre-diabetes, please visit the In It Together website or their Facebook page. I'm Tre Tailor, and you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. Listen, just when you thought COVID was the only health concern, 'tis the season for the flu. Now, with the Twindemic, as it's being called upon us, Assistant State Epidemiologist Dr. Jane Kelly helps us understand the relationship and what we can do to protect ourselves. Dr. Kelly is a board-certified internist with nearly 40 years clinical and public health experience. You don't look a day over 45, and has become a leading authority on the COVID-19 vaccine. And with the UK already administering their vaccine as of yesterday, we'll talk a little bit about that also. Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about first these COVID numbers that are continuing to rise and rise and rise. Other than Thanksgiving, the people going away because, you guys said you expected that. What seems to be the problem?
Oh, I think it's several factors. I think people are just tired of COVID. Yeah. They're tired of mitigation measures. They're tired of wearing masks, social distancing, and the weather's getting colder. People are indoors more, and indoors is less safe than outdoors.
Right. Yeah.
And especially, like you mentioned, Thanksgiving, that's definitely a player. In South Carolina and nationwide, we're seeing increases everywhere. And I think it's directly linked to people traveling and getting together with friends and non-household members.
And then coming back.
And then coming back.
Affecting everybody else.
Yeah.
So are we looking at, I know here's a slide about, some of the numbers that have been going on over. Now, do these numbers also reflect our schools?
These do reflect our schools, but you're right. This is an overall, both of these images are overall numbers. So that red trend line that, we had an increase in July, 2 weeks after 4th of July events. And then we've got a huge increase after Thanksgiving. And that's nationwide. So that includes all ages, that includes youth as well as what's going on in nursing homes. What I can say is that most of those increases, and that's shown that South Carolina map, we don't have as big a surge as the rest of the nation, but we definitely have a surge, and it is across the board. It is not so much in elementary school age children. Yes, we have some cases there, but it is more in young adults, age 25 to 34, age 15 to 24. That's where we're seeing big surges. Sometimes we have, unfortunately, outbreaks in nursing homes, and once COVID-19 gets into a nursing home, it can rapidly go through the residents and staff who work there. But mostly we are seeing new cases in young adults, in high school, college age kids, but also young adults in their 20s, early 30s, who feel that they're less at risk, and I understand that. And they're I think the ones who are more likely to be socializing in unsafe venues like in bars and restaurants.
Yeah, I was going to ask that are we seeing the numbers because we know that about college students, but high school students too. Do you think it also has to do with playing sports? Because sports, even though, as I said in my news story, we started with school. A lot of schools are going back to virtual, started with sports. A lot of schools are now saying, hold up, we've got to stop with the sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had questions like, how do we do wrestling safely? And the answer is, you can't. I mean, you can put masks on those kids, but they're still in extreme close contact, sweating, breathing hard. So yes, definitely sports, unfortunately, are a risk. Yeah. There are ways to make them safer. Sports that are outdoors, like soccer, was safer than indoors basketball. But there are been a number of stories of outbreaks here and in other places associated with sports. Yeah, and just cheerleading.
Cheerleading, yeah. And here's the other thing, as you said, you're perspiring and then screaming, go team, go team, Yeah. It's so funny. The other day I was in a store and it was a little like a dollar store kind of thing. And there was a man standing behind me. He didn't have on a mask and he was singing.
Oh, no.
Yes. And he sounded nice, but I was like, really, sir? You are behind me. You don't have a mask and you're singing.
There have been outbreaks associated with church choir events, practices where they thought they were doing the right thing. They were distancing from one another, but without a mask, and you're projecting your voice when you're singing, you're projecting viral particles. And a lot of people are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. They don't have symptoms yet, but they're still contagious. And that's been a real tragedy and something that I think is really important to bear in mind. I know people want to participate in their faith-based community. There are ways to do it that's more safe than others.
Yeah, it's been a big thing. And, it's hard to believe it's almost been a year since we have been dealing with COVID. And at the onset, we thought, it's just going to be a couple of months. And here we are in December.
Yes. Yes.
The state's assistant epidemiologist, Dr. Jane Kelly, is with us. Dr. Kelly, how does the onset of the flu season, which we are smack dab in the middle of it now, affect COVID?
Well, the real concern is getting the twindemic, getting both diseases at the same time, getting influenza and COVID-19 at the same time could be just devastating. You would expect that those would work together to give you a much more severe illness. And a person who might not normally need hospitalization, for example, for influenza this year, if they've got influenza and COVID at the same time, it'll be a different story. And we worry about that's going to overwhelm hospitals if we start seeing cases of influenza as well as COVID-19. It's going to just overwhelm our facilities. The good news is so far, so good this year. So far, we have lower numbers of influenza cases than in previous years. And I imagine in part that's because people are keeping a social distance. They are wearing masks, and that helps to protect them from influenza as well. Yeah, but I wouldn't just rely on that. If I can put in a plug for flu vaccine, I would like to. I've gotten my flu vaccine. It is not too late to get your flu vaccine. We are still early enough in this epidemic.
And that was going to be my next question. Should we get the flu shot and why?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are several reasons for getting the flu shot. It's protecting you, but it's also protecting others. So if you may feel, well, if I get influenza, so I'll be sick for a few days, no big deal. But you also have to think about who else you interact with in your family and among your friends. Who else is at increased risk if they get influenza? The very old, the very young, people who have conditions like diabetes, they're at risk for being much more ill with influenza. So when you get your flu shot, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting others around you as well. This may be the most important flu vaccine in your life, protecting you. If you get influenza, it'll lower your resistance, makes you more likely, more susceptible to get COVID-19 or other respiratory infections.
Right. So a person could actually get both then.
Oh, yes. There have been cases in this country and abroad of people getting both, and it's definitely a worse disease.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, of course, we hear that people of color at risk, elderly people are at risk. And we've talked about this before on the show, but tell us again why that is.
Probably the strongest risk factor for severe disease and death is age. As people get older, their immune system, that which fights off bacteria and viruses, becomes weakened. They just don't fight certain diseases as well as when they were younger. So certainly age is the biggest factor. In this country, 80% of people who have died of COVID-19 were age 65 and older. But that's not all. There's definitely increased risk, not only for certain medical conditions, but there seems to be increased risk by race and ethnicity. Now, there's no good biological explanation for that. There's no reason to think African American people are going to have worse disease with COVID-19 than whites. But we know the statistics are that African Americans and Latinos and Native Americans, American Indian, Alaska Natives, are 3 times more likely to have died of COVID-19 than white Americans. There are a lot of reasons for that. Some of it may be higher rates of diabetes or other diseases, but I suspect that it also has to do with social determinants of health, socioeconomic status, what job you have, whether, some people can telework, other people have to be face-to-face with the public in their work, or they're working, for example, in factories or in food processing plants where they're working in very close environment next to other people, and also access to care. We do not have universal health care in this country. And there are people who have very limited access to care. Even if they have a healthcare provider, maybe they can't take time off during the workday to go visit them. So,
well, I tell you, COVID has certainly shone a light on the disparities in healthcare and folks who do, and, the haves and the have-nots, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And why it's so important.
Absolutely. I mean, I would hope that some good things, some good changes in systems will come out of this. A trivial one might be just that we learn that, hey, we can do more teleworking and maybe we'll save time and gasoline. And we can do more things with teleworking, but also in terms of highlighting what challenges there are. How do we get vaccine to people? I mean, that this is not a new problem. But it really, as you say, shines a light on it, that we need to change our systems, our healthcare systems, and our preventative medicine systems.
We're talking to the assistant epidemiologist in South Carolina. This is Dr. Jane Kelly. She is also a leading internist and one of the experts. She's said to be the leading healthcare expert in South Carolina about vaccines. And we're going to talk to her a little bit about that later. But actually, as a matter of fact, let's talk about the vaccine. The UK distributed their vaccine yesterday. How is it that
Brandon Traxler.
Sorry.
Brandon Traxler's calling you.
Let me speak here for a moment.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'll call you back. I'm on the Tre Tailor.
I love it. Jane Kelly says, I'm on the Tre Tailor show right now. Hold on a second. I feel very honored that you told Brandon Traxler.
We are making crisis decisions right now having to do with vaccine rollout. With the vaccine. So things are moving very quickly.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing to say. Let me say, Daniel Lake says, thank you, Dr. Kelly, for a thorough explanation about the need for a flu vaccine. Thank you, Danielle, so much for watching and for saying that, because, people just are not getting it. I mean, in a good year, which, good or bad is relative. On a non-COVID year, non-pandemic year, people struggle with getting the flu vaccine, Mm-hmm. So in the midst of a twindemic, flu being one of the demics, as you said, it's so much more important now than ever.
And actually, let me make another comment about the flu vaccine, and this is relevant to the COVID vaccine as well, the upcoming vaccines.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll hear people say, I don't really want to take that flu vaccine. Last time I took it, it gave me the flu. I know it's not very helpful to say, no, that's not right. It didn't give you the flu, because I know sometimes when I get the flu vaccine, I don't feel great for a day or two. My arm is sore. I'm fatigued. I have some flu-like symptoms. What's really going on there, though, is that flu vaccine has revved up your immune system. And part of your immune system is like those first frontline, warriors, are special chemicals in your body to fight off germs, fight off bacteria and viruses. So yes, sometimes a person does not feel great after they receive a vaccine. Those symptoms are temporary. It didn't give you the flu, that it revved up your immune system. It's a sign that that vaccine is working. And I think it's only fair to warn people ahead of time that the upcoming COVID-19 vaccines, they may have those temporary symptoms too, of a sore arm. We're hearing reports of that from people who were in the initial phase 3 trials, that they had sore arm, fatigue, muscle aches. But I would ask you, would you rather have 1 or 2 days of sore arm, muscle ache that you can treat with Tylenol, or risk, because you've seen the numbers are greatly increasing, risk getting COVID-19?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We're talking to Dr. Jane Kelly. She is the state's assistant epidemiologist. Ronnie Taylor says that he hopes and prays that this information reaches those who need to hear it. Me too, Ronnie. And we're not preaching to the choir. I mean, you said a word right there. I mean, this is why the platform is on social media, because we know, Ronnie, that there is a huge demographic of people that do not get their news and information from traditional sources. They're not going to pick up a newspaper. They're not going to watch CNN. You know, they're not going to listen to NPR, but folks are on social media. So we ask you to please post and share this out. If you know somebody who needs to hear it, please put it on their timeline. Please post and share this message out. I say it every show, and it's not a cliche. It's the truth. We want to get this message to the masses, because this is a serious thing that is affecting Black and brown people more than anybody else. And if you have people that you love and that you care for, maybe this information will change their mind a little bit. We're actually going to talk to Lisa Burbage in the next segment, and she's doing some amazing things in our community to help people get it, you know, make some lifestyle changes so that we are not always the first to get everything coming. You know, I'm Tre Tailor. Dr. Jane Kelly is joining us. She's the assistant epidemiologist for the state of South Carolina. I want to ask, before we get to the COVID vaccines, Dr. Kelly, what can these groups who are at risk do to protect and or prevent everything that's going on? Right now, we're talking about flu and COVID, but you know, I know that there are things that we can do to protect ourselves.
Sure. And so in addition to wearing a mask, staying distance from people, trying to avoid large group gatherings, there are other things, and I think you're going to be talking about this in the second half of the show, that are just lifestyle changes that, I know it's hard to change behavior, and you have to do it in one step at a time. But changing those behaviors has an impact not just on whether you get the flu or COVID, but also whether you get heart disease, cancer. I mean, people think of cancer as something that it just occurs out of the blue. There are risk factors for cancer, and most of them are risk factors that actually are under our control. It's not just around genetics. It's around whether you smoke. It's also around how much certain foods that help to protect against cancer, like fruits and vegetables, and other foods that are associated with increases in cancer. High-fat diets are associated with increases in certain types of cancer. Alcohol use as well. And I mean, even just social drinking more than, one glass of wine is associated for women with increases in breast cancer.
Stop there for a minute. Can you say that again for the people in the back?
I will. So breast cancer is complicated. There are a lot of different kinds of breast cancer. Some of it's genetics. Some of it has to do with the BRCA gene, what runs in your family. But do you know most women who develop breast cancer, it doesn't run in their family. They don't have a genetic component. They've got other things going on. And one of the factors that is really important in the development of breast cancer is being overweight, having a high-fat diet, and alcohol use. Wow. And I don't mean just binge drinking, though binge drinking is bad. I mean even moderate, what people may consider moderate alcohol use is associated with an increase in breast cancer risk. Wow. So, I understand people got to live their lives, and there are pleasures in life that you want to enjoy, but I would suggest everything in moderation. And as long as we're talking about breast cancer, I'll put in a plug for mammograms, which I know are unpopular because they're uncomfortable and people worry about radiation, but the amount of radiation in a mammogram is really very small. compared to there's radiation literally in our atmosphere, in the world around us. Our rocks radiate a certain amount of radiation, but mammograms save lives. Getting your mammogram saves lives by identifying cancer early on.
Wow, you just said a mouthful there, Dr. Kelly. Listen, please continue to post and share this information out so we can get the message to the masses. We're talking to Dr. Jane Kelly. She is a leading internist and expert on the COVID vaccine. She's also the state's assistant epidemiologist. If you just joined us, thank you so much for watching Coping with COVID. I encourage you to go back and watch the replay. Dr. Jane Kelly just gave us some. When we talked about this yesterday, I was just really blown away to find out that there are things in our control that we could do, not only not to get COVID or a cold or the flu, but cancer, drinking alcohol excessively, the foods that we eat. Those are the types of things that are so important. Let's talk a little bit about the vaccine that we were talking about before Dr. Brandon Traxler conversation. So, like I said, the UK has started distributing theirs yesterday. So the question, of course, is we don't even have a cure for cancer, for HIV, for the common cold. How is it that less than a year there's a vaccine for COVID?
I'm so glad you asked that, because I think that's a misperception that the vaccine was developed in just a year. And let me try and back up and explain what I mean by that. You may remember SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. That was in 2002. And then there was it affected about 8,000 people worldwide and killed about 800 of them. But then so there was a rush at that time to create a vaccine. So basic science research began in 2002 on a very closely related virus, SARS. Mm-hmm. And in the image that's up right now, if you look at developing vaccines in record time, look at those gray bars. That's right. What we usually do in developing a vaccine. And which ones of these are the longest bars in those gray bars? Well, it's the academic research, preclinical, building factories. So that's the basic science stuff, researching around a virus. And then once you've got a vaccine that you like, only then do companies build the factories to start to create the vaccine. Now, if you look at those blue bars that are all kind of tiny squished together, that's an estimate of what is happening. It's not exactly precise, but it's an estimate of what is happening with regards to the COVID-19. You'll notice two things. One is that those longest bars, the research, the preclinical, and the building factories, they're all now very short. There are reasons for that, and I'll get to that in a moment. And the other is that they're overlapping. And normally, vaccine manufacturing companies, they are very careful with how they spend their money. They're not going to proceed from one step to the next until they know that they've got a sure thing. So they don't recruit people for phase studies until they know they have a vaccine that is looking like it's going to give a good return on investment.
Right.
So let me take those phases one at a time. I keep using this term preclinical. By that, I mean basic science research, when scientists or virologists are doing research to understand how a virus works. That started for these SARS viruses back in 2002. We've had 17 years of research going on with that virus. They never finished making a vaccine because the disease was contained. Then it came up again in 2012 with Middle East respiratory syndrome, a little bit more obscure. It only affected about 2,500 people. But again, there was more basic science research. So that's the biggest chunk of time in developing a vaccine, is understanding the virus and understanding what's going to work. Well, based on that 17 years of research, scientists knew they wanted what protein they wanted to focus on for a vaccine for this virus. So when January came and the virus was first discovered, and the genetic code, like the instructions inside the virus for making more virus, was released, well, scientists knew exactly where to go. They could immediately start applying a vaccine in animals, in mice and in monkeys. And then they could go to the human studies. Human studies started very early on. That phase One study is where you ask for normal, healthy volunteers to take the vaccine just to show that it's safe and doesn't have any serious side effects. And then phase 2 studies, they mess around with the dosing. What's the best dose? Can we do, is it just 30 milligrams? Do we have to go up to 100 milligrams? That sort of thing. And the timing, is it a one-time shot, or do you need to give 2 doses, one and then a booster? And then phase 3 is where you test it in a large number of people. What was unprecedented here is that they went into phase 3 testing and recruited tens of thousands of people right from the start. That's unusual. Usually they just do it over the course of years because they don't want to spend a lot of money on it.
Right.
Whereas this time, because of the urgency and the federal government investing in it, they started both Pfizer and Moderna. These are the 2 companies whose vaccines are coming up. They both started testing in phase 3 in more than 30,000 people each. So it's not that they didn't test it as well as other vaccines in the past. It's that they did the same number of people, but they did the same number of people all at once, rather than trying to spread it out over years to save money.
Well, I want to talk about that because, of course, we know people of color have been very skeptical about trials. Have there been enough diversity in the trials, Dr. Kelly, to determine if the vaccine is safe for every ethnicity?
People of color have plenty of reasons to be mistrustful of vaccine trials or medication, have medical mistrust for the reason for that is shown right there on the slide right now. The Tuskegee experiments. This is an infamous syphilis study in which these Black men who were infected with syphilis at a time when there was no effective treatment for syphilis, they were entered into a study to try and follow what happened to their bodies over time. What is horrendous about this and unforgivable about this is when penicillin was discovered to be a treatment for syphilis, that these men were not given the penicillin. And we're talking about people who are not highly educated, not going to be aware of their rights. They did not sign informed consent for this study. Many of them misunderstood what was going on in this study. What I can say about that is that when the whistle blew on that study in 1972, that many things have been put in place to prevent that sort of thing from ever happening again. Institutional review boards, for example, any researcher, whether that's government or a university or a pharmaceutical company, wants to do any sort of studies, it's going to involve humans. They have to put their justification and all their ethics background into a document that then undergoes an independent review, not by their company, not by their particular branch of the government, but an independent review, and that does a human studies review. And those reviews are ongoing as the study proceeds to make sure if something new comes up, a new treatment or new protocol, maybe a new vaccine that's better comes to the fore, that they may stop a study, or if a serious reaction occurs during a study, they may stop that study short because to investigate that, to make sure that they're not doing harm to people. Right. But I understand that there's plenty of reason to have medical mistrust. But I think the way to deal with that is information.
Yeah.
So not find out the facts for yourself. So how can you possibly do that? Well, there are websites where there'll be information posted specifically on the vaccines. Your listeners may know, your viewers may know that this Friday, the Food and Drug Administration and another group from CDC called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices are meeting to discuss the Pfizer vaccine. And if they give them the green light, as we think they will, there'll be an emergency use authorization. They will post both their report, which may be pretty technical, but there'll also be a plain language report explaining what are the facts. And those facts will include how effective was that vaccine? How well did it work? We know that some people in these vaccine studies, even though they got the real deal, even though they got the vaccine, some small number of them nevertheless developed disease, developed an infection. What I know from reading the reports thus far is those people who developed COVID-19, they had a much milder form of it. That, this goes for influenza too. You get vaccinated, but still, unfortunately, you get the infection, whether that's influenza or COVID-19, it will be less severe with vaccine. But okay. I would just urge everybody, seek out the facts for yourself. They'll be available on the CDC website. We will have a plain language document on our website trying to explain what do these vaccine studies show, and to also look at the safety data.
Right. Two more things before we take a break. Michelle says a vaccine and a cure are two different things. A vaccine won't cure COVID, just prevent it. Is that correct?
That is correct. So a vaccine and a cure are two different things. Right now, we don't have any good cures for COVID-19. We have some things that can help people stay alive. We can give them antibodies. There are certain medications that help to reduce the inflammation that goes on with COVID-19. What a vaccine does is prevent you from getting infected in the first place. Or because nothing in life is 100%. Right. These vaccines are 95% effective, which means, there is that small chance that you could still get COVID-19, but it would be less severe.
Okay. And back to the trials conversation. So enough people of color included, have been in the trials for everyone to know or feel confident that every ethnicity can get the vaccine.
Both Pfizer and Moderna, these two companies, their vaccines are very similar, but both of them went to great length to make sure that they had wide inclusion in their phase 3 trials. Those are the ones where you study it in 30, 40,000 people. So for example, and I have the numbers right here, that Pfizer, for example, had enrolled more than 42,000 people in their phase 3 studies, and they did it in multiple different countries. And worldwide, about 42% of the people in that phase 3 study were people of color. Blacks, Hispanic, Latinos, Asians, Pacific Islanders. In the United States, it was about 30% of people who participated in those trials. 10% of those were African American, and I think it's 15 or a little bit more percent of them were Hispanic, Latino ethnicity.
Okay, great. Now, I want to talk more about vaccines, but I know you're coming back in a couple of weeks to talk about vaccines. So thank you so much for, entertaining our conversation. Now, yesterday, as Dr. Kelly and I, as I mentioned, had shared some interesting information about how you can prevent getting more than just COVID. She touched on it a little bit today in our conversation, cancer. Well, she's going to come back next to tell us about that. Plus, board certified wellness coach Lisa Burbage joins the conversation to talk about an upcoming program that can also help put you in a position to protect you against what Dr. Kelly has shared with us. That's coming up next on Coping with COVID. Coping with COVID and In It Together, South Carolina and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday. If you need information about diabetes, how to manage it, and to join a class to help you manage your diabetes or pre-diabetes, please visit the In It Together website or Facebook page. I'm Tre Tailor. More Coping with COVID coming up next.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Crazy George Wallace. Happy holidays, everybody. What do you get the person that has everything? You get my book, my new book, Bull Twit. I can't say what I want to say. Bull Twit and whatnot. Just little ramblings of me coming out of my head, things I've been thinking about. Like, we were so poor, people would break into our house, they'd look around, and they would bring us furniture. That's how poor we were. We were so poor, we could only listen to the Pips. We never knew that was a Gladys. But all these are in my book, georgewallace.net. It's a cute, expensive book with quality. Look at the quality on that book. Every page, it's wonderful. You need to get a book, put some laughter in your life. Remember, I'm George Wallace. I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. People are buying 5 and 10 at a time. georgewallace.net. See ya! Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas. Fix my tie. Fix my tie.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. Established in 2010 with past national media guests like Janice Huff, Mitch Faulkner, and Dolores Washington, and local celebs like Cynthia Hardy, Miranda Parnell, Vaughn Gaskin, Kevin Cohen, Vanzell Hare, and Makita Pearson, and hosted by Darcy Strickland and Tony G. Palmetto Media Connections in the past has distributed to the community over $1,000 in gift cards. Connect with us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together.
People will be able to look 100 years from now. They will know how we got over. This makes it even more important that we shine this light.
Part of it also wasn't the fact that we couldn't have the physical graduation, but I also couldn't celebrate with my family out of town.
For me, I feel like this is a new normal. This is not going away anytime soon, I don't think.
Anything that's happened before can happen again. And the same thing is at play with this virus.
You know, we are no longer in a building, and we've talked about church being, with us, in us.
Have you traveled abroad late in the past 6 months? We were trying to trace it back as early as November.
Christmas time is here, family, and we could all use a good laugh. Yep. A very funny Christmas live. A night of hope and laughter with your hosts, comedians Akintunde and Nikita B. Yep. With special guest, comedian Tony Tone. Saturday, December 12th at Right Direction Church International, Columbia, South Carolina. All right. Live in the house, socially distant tickets, $25.
Nice.
Live stream tickets, $12. Ooh. All attendees must wear a mask.
For sure.
And body temperature will be taken upon arrival. For tickets and more info, log on to rebirthofcomedy.com or dial 1-800-280-0094. That's 1-800-280-0094. Yep. It's a very funny Christmas, a night of hope and laughter. Yep. With your hosts, Akintunde and Nikita B. Yep. We got the jokes for you just in time for the holidays.
It's the holidays. It's time for the holidays. Can't believe we made it through the May.
Hey there, I'm Tre Tailor. You're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's Wellness Wednesday, and Edit Together SC and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday right here on Coping with COVID. Now, if you need information about diabetes, how to manage it, and to join a class to help you manage your diabetes or pre-diabetes, please visit the Edit Together website or Facebook page. I'm Tre Tailor. Want to encourage you to please post and share this information out. Listen, we really want to get this message to the folks who need it. Black and brown people are being affected the most by everything. But today we're talking about COVID and the flu. So we need to get this information to those of us who need it. Today, like I said, we're discussing the Twindemic, COVID and the flu. If you just joined us, please watch the replay. Dr. Jane Kelly, who is the state's leading authority on the COVID vaccine, shared some great information. Check it out in the replay. And then, as I said, share the information out because someone needs to hear it. South Carolina Assistant Epidemiologist Jane Kelly, Dr. Jane Kelly joins us again, along with board certified wellness coach and master trainer Lisa Burbage, who is the CEO of Wellness 5. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Tre.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell your husband we said hello. You were on the last time with your hubby. So
yeah, I'll tell him. We're still growing vegetables too.
Are you? Yeah. I was out in my garden the other day and I thought about your husband.
I'll tell him that.
He's okay to tell him that. Listen, I want to start with Dr. Kelly. Because you mentioned earlier in the show, after a conversation that the three of us actually had yesterday, that we are more in control than we think to prevent so many other diseases, including cancer. Can you reiterate that, please, Dr. Kelly?
Sure. And I think Lisa yesterday said something, quoted something I frequently heard, that an estimate that 90% of cancers are preventable, or something. I think, not sure if that's exactly how you phrased it. And we were talking about that may sound hard to believe, but it's true. It's only a small proportion of cancer that really comes from some genetic disaster or a cancer gene. Certainly people have heard of like the BRCA gene for women with breast cancer. That's a small contributor to the number of women who have breast cancer. Causes of cancer that are preventable include certain viruses. For example, HPV, the human papillomavirus vaccine that is recommended for young women and now recommended for young men as well. If women universally receive that, we would have zero cervical cancer. We could eliminate cervical cancer because that is far and away the number one cause of cervical cancer. It's this virus that's irritating your cervix. It's also implicated in oral cancer and some other cancers. So, I mean, it would go a long way to prevent that cancer. That's true for some other things too. Hepatitis A, hepatitis B, there are vaccines for those. And those viruses are a leading cause worldwide of liver cancer. But so vaccines play a role in cancer prevention. Certainly tobacco use and avoiding tobacco use or ceasing tobacco use if you're currently using goes a long way towards preventing not just lung cancer, but oropharyngeal cancer, mouth cancer. And it probably plays a role in some other kinds of cancers as well, such as prostate cancer. Alcohol also is a risk factor.
Well, Dr. Kelly, before you go to alcohol, when you say tobacco, you not only mean smoking it, but even maybe, people put it in their mouth. I don't even know what that's called. You dip in snuff or something like that, right?
You bet. That is associated with oral cancer, mouth cancer.
Right.
And that's a very difficult thing to treat. It's not easy to remove an oral cancer without removing a lot of other important stuff.
Right. Drinking, you said. Alcohol.
Well, alcohol too. It's a source of pleasure, but it can be in excess amounts. What does excess amount mean? I think that depends upon the type of alcohol as well. But we know that as you increase the amount of alcohol that you take in, you increase your chances of certain cancers, of liver cancer, of breast cancer, prostate cancer. Alcohol is associated with esophageal cancer. I mean, I could name a long list, but it's basically anything that's an irritant. Anything you're putting in a chemical into your body, it's an irritant, and it's likely to interfere with your body's normal functioning. And your body's normal functioning is that if you have one cancer cell that develops, that you have systems in your body that get rid of it, but not if it gets overwhelmed with a lot of constant irritants.
Wow. Michelle Harris, who works at DHEC, and I were talking, and she was sharing a stat with me, Lisa, that stated that smoking also was a contributing factor to diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It is. In fact, we don't have a vaccine for diabetes. So the only thing you can do to prevent it, even if you have that 10% genetic disposition towards it, is to make lifestyle changes. Diabetes runs in my family. I am very aware of diabetes. Yeah. And I'm doing everything I preach in this program to prevent it. I'm also a breast cancer survivor. Again, that doesn't run in my family.
Right.
But I was overweight and I ate a lot of fatty foods. I can't say I drank a lot. I don't know that I checked off that box, but the first two, and I had a lot of stress.
Right.
To it. But those three things put me I'm now a breast cancer survivor. But all of this has contributed why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing today to help others prevent getting any of these chronic illnesses.
Well, let's talk about that, what you are doing, because as Dr. Kelly said, a lot of this is preventable. It's just about changing your lifestyle. And that's so mind-blowing because like you said, Lisa, like you, I have diabetes in my family. It's every other generation of typically women. My brother got it instead of me, but I'm conscientious about what I eat and what I don't eat and what I do. You said the thing about breast cancer. Both of my sisters had breast cancer and passed away. So I'm conscientious about getting my mammograms, Dr. Kelly, you know. So we hear that if somebody in your family got it, you're going to get it. But what you guys are saying is it ain't necessarily so. It could be some things that you are choosing to do that could decrease your risk. So what are you doing out in the community, Lisa? Tell us a little bit about how you are encouraging, motivating, helping people make these changes so that they can live a better life.
Well, one thing that I'm getting ready to do in January is, because of a CDC grant administered through South Carolina DHEC, I'm going to be offering a free and virtual program to prevent type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Now, prevent or delay, let me clarify that. But all we do in this program is learn how to eat better, move more, manage our stress, sleep better. I mean, we learn the foundation of what you need to do to prevent what Dr. Kelly's been talking about today. And now we can add COVID to the list.
Right.
You know, now we can help prevent COVID by building up our immune system through healthy lifestyle changes. So I'm just so tickled that this grant came at this moment in time. I'm running a program right now, and someone asked me, well, I'm not ready to take it. Well, there's been no better time to take it than right now. And January is a brand new year. Let's start it off
anew. Yeah. Mitchell Peace Joy Jen says, change your lifestyle, change your life. Thank you, Mitchell, for your comment. Michelle Harris says, change is simple, but not always easy. Having support to make better choices is also helpful. Can you speak to that, Lisa? Because Michelle makes a great point that, you know, you can, you know, and you know, we start off at the beginning of the year, girl, we're all encouraged and we're motivated and we're ready. And then we got to look at Valentine's Day candy in February. And people in our households, people, our friends, are doing the same kind of things. How do you work with people navigating through those types of things? Thanks, Michelle, for your question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, one of the things that this program does is provide group support. It's not me one-on-one with someone. It's me and a group of about 20 other individuals, all trying to make the same healthy lifestyle changes. So we have each other to provide accountability and to provide support. I'm a facilitator. It's not a class where I sit up there and talk for 45 minutes. Very participatory. And every week we set an action plan of what you can be working on that week to make you a little bit closer to being healthy. So the team, the synergy and the support is such a big part of this. I love to watch it unfold.
Yeah, that's great. We're talking to Lisa Burbage. She is a board certified health wellness expert and a trainer with working with SC DHEC. And this is the information on the program that she is launching in January. And as she said, what better time to change your lifestyle so that you can live a better life. You know, listen, we did not know when we all made our New Year's resolutions in December that we were going to be hit with a pandemic, a health pandemic, a medical pandemic. And we don't know what's going to happen in 2021, you know. So again, we want to make sure that you are, your body is able to ward off anything that's coming to you. And that's what this is basically, isn't it, Lisa? Kind of preparing your body for life, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's truly is a prevention program, Michelle. Like we were saying, diabetes, there is no vaccine for it. Now, you can put it in remission once you cross over, but you can't cure it. And this program is trying to prevent it.
Right.
If your BMI is over 30, if you've had gestational diabetes, if you have a family history like you and me, These, or if you're on high blood pressure medicine, these are all good candidates for this program.
Right.
And you will learn it's not a diet program and it's not an exercise program. It's a lifestyle change program.
Right.
The byproduct is you lose
your life back.
You get your life back. Yeah, you get energy. You lose weight. You feel better. I mean, that's the byproduct. But we do it very, very slowly. I don't want anybody to think they've got to do some radical dieting, because that doesn't last.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's what I was going to ask you. How do you maintain it? So tell me a little bit about the steps. So people call you or they email you to sign up for the program. And then what happens next, Lisa?
Well, on January 5th, we'll have an info session where everybody who's interested can tune in. I'll send them a Zoom link and they can tune in, either call or video in, and they'll find out more about the question. I mean, they'll find out more about the program. They'll also meet the other classmates. They'll see the other participants. And then the actual class will start on Tuesday, January 12th. And at 5 o'clock. It'll be a 5 o'clock class. So if people work, we're trying to make that, to accommodate everybody.
And this is for anyone in South Carolina or anywhere in South Carolina.
Right. It's, if you're a South Carolina resident, you can attend because it's a virtual program.
Right.
So we want to make that open to everybody. Yeah.
Right. And again, you talk about eating, stress eating. A lot of people are stress eating right now because they're stressed out. So you help them work through what other things that they can do. And then, like you said, movement and just making better health choices.
Yeah, it's confusing out there. One day coffee's good for us, the next day it's not.
That's right.
And even for me, and I do this every day, keeping up with this, but we learn what is the basis for a healthy diet. What causes inflammation in your body that Dr. Kelly talked about.
It might be different for everybody, right?
Well, there's a basic plate, they call it my plate, that you want to learn to eat whole foods and get away from the processed.
Yeah.
That's a biggie. Just eliminating processed foods alone is huge. But we're in a grab and go society. So how do you do that? So we talk about that. We learn how you do that. And we also talk about ways to get movement. A lot of people like dieting, think exercise is a bad word, and they don't like to exercise. So we learn what is movement. It might be mowing your yard or cleaning your house. All of these things can help.
Dancing with your grandkids, And isn't it too, like if you happen to go out, parking further away so that you can walk, to the store and things like that.
That's a great tip. Excellent. And that's the kind of stuff we learn. Not to go out and run a marathon, but how you can bring little small changes into your life so it's not punitive.
Yeah.
Dieting is punitive and people aren't going to stick with it. So we want, So
that's Lisa Burbage. She is a board certified wellness coach. Michelle wants to know, Lisa, does inflammation cause disease or does disease cause inflammation? Good question.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Dr. Kelly on that one.
Well, I think both are true. I think it goes in both directions. So when we talk about inflammation, you may be familiar with, inflammation, you pull a muscle or something's inflamed in that sense. But inflammation can also be within your blood vessels so that it is, it spreads to your entire body. And stress causes inflammation. There is both emotional stress, but also physical stress. So, for example, if you have a disease, whether it's a chronic disease or an acute illness, that is a stressor on your body and causes inflammation. But the reverse is true also. There are lots of things that are inflammatory syndromes, that people get disease just because a vicious cycle of inflammation began in their bodies.
Right, right. Well, the information is here. Lisa Burbage is starting this new program. Please contact the info. You see the information on the screen right there. It is starting in January, and you can get, just get your life back, get your health back, and you deserve it. And what better way to start the new year? Lisa, thank you so much. It sounds like such an exciting program. I really appreciate it. And, I'll tell you a quick story. We've got about 30 minutes left, but I will say this. I had and I'm a pretty clean eater. I'm a vegetarian, but I love my chocolate chip cookies. and like I said, I've got a trait of a little bit of everything in my family, like a lot of African Americans do. But but I walk. I mean, I thought I was doing all the right things, but I was still on the edge of having diabetes. Tell them we said, hey, Dr.
You know what? I think I'm going to have to get off early, and I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That's Dr. Kelly. Jane Kelly. She is the assistant epidemiologist at DHEC. Thank you so much again, Dr. Kelly. We appreciate it.
And I'll be back. So
yes, you will be back.
You. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you so much. But I just wanted to wrap up by saying I was having, a lot of, I was diagnosed with being pre-diabetic and with high blood pressure. And it was driving me crazy because I know I was making all the right choices. But a couple of years ago, I started having some problems with hoarseness. One, thought it may have been allergy. They ruled out that. 2, they ruled out polyps. They found out that I had like a severe form of acid reflux, and that the acid was actually moving up and searing off my vocal cords. To make a long story short, the doctor started prescribing me with medicine. And I was like, well, how long do I have to take all of this? He said, forever. I was like, no, what do I need to do? He said, you need to take acid out of your diet. Now that meant lemon, lime, tomato paste, peanuts, because peanuts break down in your system so hard, it starts the acid. I was eating peanut butter every day. No fried foods, no processed foods. So I'm going to tell you, Lisa, it was a hard decision to make. And he said to me, he doesn't tell people mostly to change their eating habits. He prescribes medicine because people don't want to do it. Now, I did it. And not only did I lost a lot of weight, and I wasn't overweight at the time. I lost weight. But the key, and then I got my voice back, which I needed that. But the other thing was, my doctor said I was no longer pre-diabetic, and my blood pressure was okay.
Yeah,
that was amazing because I eliminated some things out of my diet.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. A lot of people come into the program wanting to get off meds or not have to take them. So, so that's another good reason to come in and change your lifestyle.
That's another good reason. All right. This is Lisa Burbage. Please contact her for this great program that's coming up. And again, it is so important. It's so important. Listen, people who are losing their lives, losing their limbs by leaps and bounds. And if we love each other, if we love our family members, we need to dedicate and just take some time to share information like this so that we can live a better life. We deserve it. You deserve it. So please continue to post and share this information out. Lisa Burbage, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Happy holidays to you. And again, please tell your hubby we said hello, okay?
I'll do it, Trey. Y'all take care.
All right. Thank you so much. Listen, if you have a story that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwith.TreTailor@gmail.com. The information is on there. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, we would love for you to do the same thing. Please go to the Tailor Made Production Facebook page, and we would love to talk to you about either highlighting your story or being a proud sponsor of Coping with COVID. And I want to shout out Mitchell Peace Joy Jen because she continues to send me some great story ideas. Mitchell, I'm looking forward to sharing this story about 2 brothers that Mitchell told me about. Anyway, all of that's coming up. Also coming up on Coping with COVID Thursday, Google has a program that is helping small and minority businesses. And Shanice Cleckley is going to join us tomorrow to tell us all about it. Faith Friday, this Friday, with Christian rapper Big Red. And then next week, if you are a senior citizen or you know a senior citizen, this is a show you will want to watch. Brenda Blackstock is with SC Thrive, and she's going to join us next Tuesday on Coping with COVID, and she is going to share some great information about how your senior citizen can pay less for pretty much everything and also get money back. All of that and so much more coming up on Coping with COVID. As usual, I leave you with a reading from Jesus Calling. Jesus says today on December the 9th, be willing to go out on a limb with me. If that is where I am leading you, it's the safest place for you to be. Your desire to live a risk-free life is a form of unbelief. Your longing to live close to me is at odds with your attempt to minimize risk. Wow. You are approaching a crossroad in your journey. In order to follow me wholeheartedly, you must relinquish your tendency to play it safe. Let me lead you step by step, Jesus says, throughout the day. If your primary focus is on me, you can walk along perilous paths without being afraid. Eventually, you will learn to relax and enjoy the adventure of our journey together. As long as you stay close to me, my sovereign presence protects you wherever you go. That's your Jesus Calling for today, December 10th. I'm Tre Tailor. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. I pray that you stay safe, and I encourage you to please wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. See you guys later.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.